Today's guests are Bill Mudd and Tonya Abeln. Bill has been the president and chief operating officer of Churchill Downs Incorporated since 2015. He joined Churchill Downs in 2007 as executive vice president and CFO after working for several years at General Electric here in Louisville, and was promoted to the role of president and CFO in 2014. Under Bill's leadership, Churchill Downs business has expanded through the development of live and historical racing entertainment venues, the growth of TwinSpires, which I've got money on deposit. Thank you very much. Horse racing, online wagering business, and the operation and development of the regional casino gaming properties. Churchill Downs follows a long tradition of corporate responsibility and has been a committed charitable partner for decades. Bill received his bachelor's in mathematics and actuarial science from Bellarmine and master's in business administration from Webster University. And recently served as the chair of the board of Bellarmine University, where I also served as a trustee under Bill's leadership. I consider Bill a colleague, but most importantly, a friend. Tonya, in her role as vice president of corporate communications for Churchill Downs, Tonya is responsible for strategy, implementation, and oversight of internal and external communications, and revels in the opportunity to share the thrilling and inspiring stories behind one of America's most iconic brands, the Kentucky Derby. Additionally, as president of Churchill Downs Foundation, Tonya drives strategic charitable initiatives and manages community partnerships across the company's entire portfolio of racetrack and gaming properties. Tonya, Bill, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Such a pleasure. Thank you.
The timing of this is actually perfect. So we're sitting here close to the beginning of April. I know that in Louisville, it's just a wonderful thing when you get to that point where you're trying to set up meetings with folks. And when you get to the point where you say, before or after Derby, you know you're getting close.
It's like Christmas, right? You're like, we'll circle back to that after Derby.
After Derby, right? So it really is an honor to have you all here. This is our 25th podcast. So we're celebrating the 150th Kentucky Derby. This is our 25th podcast. So you all are special.
Well, thank you. It feels very special to be here for that.
So I know that you all have attended your share of Kentucky Derbies. I'm on my 35th straight. I would love to hear a story, one of your favorite derbies that you've been to. What is that kind of unique story that you have about that? Because I know I have a bunch. Could you share yours?
Well, I like to say that I've done Derby almost any way you can. So for a variety of ways. I grew up watching with my dad. That's really how I fell in love with the Kentucky Derby. And my favorite race that I remember watching as a kid was 1989 Sunday Silence and Easy Goer. I just love that rivalry. And that's the first year I remember wanting to watch the rest of the Triple Crown races and being really engaged with that. I attended the University of Louisville, so I went to the infield as a college student, like many do. Eventually was named a Derby Princess, which was a huge honor, and that was a lot of fun. Now I get the opportunity to work for Churchill Downs, which is truly my dream job. But probably my favorite Derby memory is a little bit unexpected. My junior year of college, I decided I was going to make money during the Derby instead of spending it in the infield like I had the year before. And so I trained to be a pari-mutuel teller. Wow. And so that was, for Oaks and Derby, I was going to make $400, a lot of money, still, but at the time particularly, that was going to do me all summer probably. So at the end of Oaks Day, my drawer was short. Significantly. This is why Bill Mudd doesn't let me near the money or the numbers at Churchill Downs. So I guess I was just making it rain. I was just giving people too much money when they cashed in their tickets. So I was really nervous that I wasn't going to make any money because I was going to have to make up that difference. So on Derby Day that year, a long shot won, charismatic, and a man who'd been coming to my window all day considered me good luck. And so he tipped me out enough for me to make up the difference and still make some money. So that was a fun memory just to be on that side of things and really learn the inside of the wagering process.
Yeah, that's got to be a difficult job.
Well, clearly it was because I did not do it correctly.
There are so many memories. It's hard to say which one would be my favorite.
Yeah.
I think every year my favorite moment during the day is when the horses are coming on the track and the announcer says, "Ladies and gentlemen, the management of Churchill Downs proudly present," and then it goes into, my old Kentucky home, and you're looking back at the crowd. I'm usually on the pagoda where we hand the trophy out, and you see all these people. You see 150 to 170,000 people, and everybody's looking and singing, and you got people crying on the television because the song is so emotional. It's still a very emotional part of the day for me, part that I really love, because I'm proud to be from Kentucky. That's probably my favorite moment. In terms of, favorite memories, man, that's hard to do. I can tell you a really funny moment.
Yeah, that'd be good.
That so this was, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. David Ortiz, Big Papi, the baseball player. My team from TwinSpires had him and a couple others, and they wanted to bring him down to the speakeasy. We have a couple of speakeasy across the site where we can entertain guests, and they can have a special cocktail on Churchill Downs. So they came down and they said, "Hey, can we be down there in 10 minutes?" I said, "Okay." Well, it was like 15, 20 minutes, and they hadn't been there yet, and I'm on a very tight schedule. And they have to have one of us to get them into the speakeasy. So I'm getting ready to leave. I open the door, and there's Big Papi. He is big as a house. I mean, he's a monster of a man. And I was excited to see him. Like, "David Ortiz, I'm so happy for you to be here. Welcome to Speakeasy." And then all of a sudden, this lady started yelling at me. "How dare you? He's standing right here. You didn't even acknowledge him." And it was a pretty well-known catcher, which, I didn't quite notice him. And I said, "Hey, I apologize." And he was super cool about it. But his wife was really upset. So David's like, "All right, everybody, calm down, calm down." And it just got really quiet. And they're like, "What?" He goes, "You all know what the problem is." And everybody's like, "What?" He goes, "All these white baseball players look alike." So that was the funniest thing. It was complete, discarded. Everybody went off their guard, started laughing, back to having fun time. And it was just a memory that it was really cool to meet him. So.
Yeah. It is just so much fun. And my wife and I, this is our favorite time of the year, and our favorite place to go is Churchill Downs. We belong to the Turf Club and just love going there. We'll be there Mother's Day. We do that every year, of course, and Father's Day. And, it's just so exciting. I remember, and I don't remember which derby this was, but I was just out of college, and I was there with my roommate, and we were going through the paddock area, and we see Howard Cosell walk through the paddock. He was going somewhere, right? And I yelled out, "Howard, who do you have in the derby?" And he goes, "Spend a buck." What year was that? That would have been in the late 80s, early 90s? Probably somewhere around there. But it was just so much fun. You see these people, and everyone's excited. Everybody's happy. It's one of those things where you go to this event, everybody's happy.
Well, that's what's the beautiful thing about this, right? You've got all 3-year-old horses. They get one opportunity in their lifetime to be there. It is the longest continuously held sporting event in the United States. And it's, I've had the opportunity to go visit and attend a lot of sporting events because of the nature of the role and the nature of the industry we're in. And we're always trying to learn from other events and bring those good things back to the Kentucky Derby. And, Kentucky Derby is unlike anything else. It's the absolute my favorite, even though I'm working all day long, because you have the pageantry, you have the athleticism of the horses and the jockeys. You have, women that are dressed to the nines and men that are, wearing fedoras and bow ties, and everybody's betting on the same outcome, not necessarily the same horse, but
right.
The $2 bettor is screaming just as hard as the $20,000 bettor.
Mm-hmm.
They still want the same horse to come across the finish line. And that's a unique sport in the sporting world. And it's not, in my opinion, it's not overly corporate.
Right.
And some other events become very corporate. So we try to, keep it fresh and keep it new and keep the excitement going. And to your point, everybody there seems to be happy and having a good day.
Well, yeah, you're right. It's the only sport where no one's cheering against each other. They're just
right.
cheering. And so it's not tribal, like team against team. It's communal.
Yeah.
Now some people are happier than others at the end of that race, depending on, their choice. But I think that's the community energy. If you walk in sitting next to someone who you don't know, you're friends by the end of the day. And you never know who
right.
you're going to run into.
You never know.
There's no better people watching anywhere in the world
best?
than there is at the Derby.
Yeah, it's the best. And and you think about it, it's like having the Super Bowl every year. And even better than that, because your team doesn't lose. Like or to the Final Four. I'll never forget the Final Four I went to for Kentucky, and they lost to Wisconsin. It was the most disappointing weekend I've ever had, right? But if you go to the Derby, there's none of that.
We're 37 days from the Derby, but we're 31 days really from, it all kicks off at our property the Saturday before the Derby.
Isn't that great?
So between Saturday and then we're back in on Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Derby, Oaks, and over those days we have over 350,000 people. So that's 5 Super Bowls. So I'm so proud of my team, and shout out to our team because they're turning that venue over every night with that many people. We're going to have 120,000 plus there on Oaks Day, the day before the Derby. The amount of trash and the amount of food and the amount of cleanup that has to occur, and all that has to be restocked, and people have to be back at it to do it again the next day. So it's a lot.
Yeah, that is, and it's the lead up. To your point, to Derby, it is kind of like the lead up to a really big holiday.
Yeah,
because it is a holiday.
Well, I think that's something that's changed a lot in the recent decades. As we talk about 150-year legacy, is the way that Derby Week has built out new products. And there was Oaks and Derby. Now everyone wants to come to Derby.
Yeah.
We have Champions Day this year. 5-0 Tuesday. It's our second year for 5-0 Tuesday, the branding. But people are just as dressed up for Tuesday now as they are for Derby. And this year for 5-0 Tuesday, we're actually celebrating all of the organizations in Louisville that are 150 years old or older. So I know that you will be on that list for sure. One of few who have weathered that for so many years, like us.
We have an event on April 28th called Roses and Rosé. We always have it in April.
Received the invitation yesterday.
And it's a wonderful time. And it's what's interesting about it is that it's focused on supporting the work that we do with individuals, families, and namely families that are fleeing domestic abuse. But it's one of those events that it's right before Derby, it's in the spring, so everyone comes dressed like Derby time.
The name's very appealing. Roses and Rosé sounds fantastic.
They have their fascinators and so mainly women, but they allow me to come. To it, but that time is the excitement in that time is built into this whole notion of leading up to Derby as well, and folks love it.
Derby City Gaming is a proud sponsor of that event, so we look forward to it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Getting back, and I want to talk about the foundation as well, but this notion of the Kentucky Derby and what it is. When I was at Ernst & Young, I was able to host a number of folks in one of the Jockeys Club suites, and it was one of those. I mean, to be up high on a beautiful sunny day and to look down on this beautiful place, there's nothing more beautiful than that, I don't think. But what I found that was interesting about this is that as we reached out across the country, it wasn't we used it for entertainment, but we didn't use it necessarily locally because to use it locally, folks are already going. So we will go out nationally to folks, CEOs of the biggest corporations in the world, invariably would always say yes and come to that. There really isn't an event like that.
There really isn't. There, when you look at the list of people that come to the Derby, we'll have so many, U.S. senators there. We'll have no less than 6 or 7 governors there this year. We've had the Queen of England attend. We have a number of princes from around the world that show up, and from royal families from a number of countries across the. We also have the, folks that love to go into the infield every year, and they show up with their chairs and their, all the stuff that they bring to eat and drink and it's a great day. It really crosses lots of different levels of people. It's not just CEOs of big corporations, but there are just people love the Derby. It's got 150 years of heritage, and we're lucky to be stewards of that for our period of time while we're there.
Let's talk about that. So 150 years. That's 1875, right? Yep. And St. Vincent de Paul was 1853. We're 170 years, and you think of Louisville, there's a number of organizations. You're going to be celebrating those that are more than 150 years. And you think about the makeup of the community and the importance of these organizations to the community. Tonya, the Churchill Downs Foundation distributes at least $5 million annually to a number of causes. I know that there is a real focus on the industry, a focus on the needs within the industry, but you're also very generous outside of the specific support for the industry. So it's pretty broad. Can you tell us about the Churchill Downs Foundation and what you all are doing?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. So we really break it down in two ways. So Churchill Downs Incorporated as a company has a long tradition of being what we hope is a responsible corporate neighbor. And that is both in the city of Louisville, our headquarters, for 150 years, but in any of the communities in which we operate. And so specifically in Louisville, we look at, the Kentucky Derby as being this critical institution to not only the culture here, but the economy. And so as a company, we are really committed to supporting organizations who similarly just support the unique culture of the city, improve the quality of life for the city. And obviously that can fall under that's a large umbrella in terms of charitable strategy. So we're able to be really flexible with that and support organizations like your own who are doing good work, make our city a better place to live and work and play and visit for those who are coming to the Kentucky Derby. So that's our focus as a company. And then to your point, we also have Churchill Downs Foundation, which is separate, and not everybody needs to know which bucket of money things are coming from, but the industry's mission is to be a good steward for this industry. And so that's really giving back to kind of what I call the unsung heroes of the Kentucky Derby and horse racing. And of course, that includes the equine athletes themselves, a lot of money to thoroughbred aftercare. And so that means after that racing career is over, and you think about all of the foals each year, 20 make it into that gate. So we want to make sure there's a sustainable lifestyle for horses on and off the track. And so we really have a focus on thoroughbred aftercare. What happens to those horses after they retire? The jockeys themselves, if the permanently disabled jockeys fund, unfortunately there is a need for that. And so we're supportive of that. Yep. The backside community, really important to us that those people who make this event possible for all of us to enjoy are supported throughout the year. I think not everybody realizes that the folks in the backside aren't employed by Churchill Downs. We feel a great responsibility to make sure that they have a good quality of life, that they're getting the resources that they need. It's a very migratory community, but oftentimes families are here in Louisville year round, so there's a lot of support that's needed there. And then we include the neighbors of the racetrack in that as well.
I noticed that. So you're and I've noticed the change in the neighborhood around the track as well. Yeah,
that one's an important one,
yeah.
And because when I say unsung heroes, those neighbors, they put up with a lot Derby time. I will say they love it. I think being part of that culture, and they're a really important part. If you talk to people who come in and out of Churchill Downs Racetrack year after year, some of their favorite traditions are parking in those yards and grabbing some barbecue on the way in or out, and they have relationships and they really enjoy that piece of it. It's an important part of the Kentucky Derby culture and what makes it feel magical. So we just want to make sure we're supporting them all year round, but specifically Derby time, we want to make that economy possible for them. So we work with them and collaborate on how to make that happen with all the parking and traffic changes. So we consider them, part of our industry because they're so vital to making it work.
Yeah. I mean, the track, it's just amazing what you all have done. And you got the new paddock.
We have debut a new $200 million paddock this year. So it's 3 times bigger than it used to be. And, in the past, whenever you were trying to cross from one side to the other, you had to go behind the paddock building. And now that paddock building has been flipped, and we exposed the facade of the original structure. So when you go out there now and you come through the gate, the first thing you see is the spires. And it's almost like I want to say a Roman Colosseum, but it is kind of Colosseum-esque in that now there's going to be tiered seating.
Yeah.
You'll sit down overlooking the paddock. Lots of new audio-visual, which is expected. But we kept the traditions, all the old architecture with the JC, with the Jockey Club, and the old architecture has all been integrated into the design. So you had talked originally about being on the top floors, and of course the mansion's at the top floor.
Yeah,
it's still one of the
beautiful.
most beautiful
Yeah.
sites. And actually, I still love the Sky Terrace because you're looking at an angle back of the track. But the new area that we've created, it's actually under the spire. So whenever the horses come out, they're actually down about 7 or 8 feet from what they used to be. So you're looking down into the paddock. But what's really cool is when the horses come out of the paddock, that tunnel now has 2 clubs. One on one side is going to be called the SI Club, Sports Illustrated Club. And then on the left is the Paddock Club. And both of those have one-way glass that looks into the paddock. So you can be sitting literally at your table looking into the paddock. The stalls are now two-sided stalls. So, they go straight through. The horses, you can see them walking around the inside. Wow. And then you can walk right out to the rail to watch the races from these two spots. So these are going to be some of the best experiences in all of sports, in my opinion, in the world. And we went and looked at what everybody had. Again, we try not to create the wheel. We go figure out who has the best wheel and then integrate it into our designs.
Well, it's going to be amazing. I mean, the accessibility to the paddock is just completely changed.
It's going to take your breath away as soon as you walk into the gate. I mean, it's truly stunning. I'm someone who doesn't like change, but this is a magnificent structure, and it will be really awe-inspiring.
We were involved from the beginning with the design, and even when I walk in, I'm like, I can't believe we're building this. This is really amazing. And we've been talking about it for 15 years, and the growth of the company has allowed us to take a big risk like this. A risk in that it's a lot of capital, right? But to invest and to grow the event, and it's less risky now than it would have been, say, 15 years ago.
Yeah, when folks think about Churchill Downs, Inc., they think about the track itself. But in my introduction, I mentioned all the different things that, since you've been there, that you've overseen the growth, and there's so much more to the company. Yeah. In addition to just, obviously there's that iconic brand of Churchill Downs and the Spires, but your role is just so much more broad even than that. Yeah,
Bill Carstangen and I always laugh, like we wouldn't get these jobs today if we if we were interviewing them, back when we had gotten them. I joined in 2007, so as the chief financial officer. And at that point, the company consisted of 4 thoroughbred racetracks. And 2 of those actually aren't with us anymore as racetracks per se. So, but we do have 9 racetracks, 6 thoroughbred and 3 standard bred tracks. We have 30 casinos. We have a big online company, TwinSpires.com, that you can place your wager on the Kentucky Derby in 30-something states, even if you're not live on site.
We love it.
So, the value, the great thing about Churchill since we've been there, and we were blessed with an opportunity because we had a clean balance when we showed up. Bill was 2 years ahead of me in 2005. And, we I don't know how many employees we had at that time. It was under 1,000, I would say, but we've got over, 10 or 11,000 employees now. So counting our joint ventures. So it's been good to be part of that growth and create a lot of opportunities.
How did you make your way? I mentioned that you're with GE. How did you make that? What was the transition? How did that work?
Yeah, so I was with GE when I started out of Bellarmine. I was actually in purchasing to begin with. And I took the risk, and I was one of the first master black belts whenever they came out with Six Sigma quality. And when I did that, I was working in finance as a master black belt, and trying to fix some of the processes and put better processes in place. And I got exposure to the CFO, who convinced me to get into finance. I was doing my MBA, so I went into finance, and I did a number of the finance courses, experienced financial leadership course with GE, and then I ended up moving around the world. I lived in Charlottesville for a while with GE Fanuc. We did factory software automation and programmable logic controllers, things like that. And then I moved to Europe and Budapest with a family, and we had 32 manufacturing plants scattered all over Europe, Middle East, Africa, and India. Big finance role, and then ended up at GE Water in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And then when GE was looking for a CFO, Bill Carstangen had spent 5 years with GE prior to joining Churchill, and had a desire to find a GE CFO. He wanted somebody with GE experience. And then, of course, me being from Louisville, I ended up fitting that bill, and from there it's history.
Well, that GE experience, I know, is very unique. And so you all being able to speak a similar language, I'm sure has helped a lot. And being used to having a business that has so many parts and pieces to it, you had already been used to that.
Right, exactly. It's the complexity you have within GE is really magnificent. Because we had, like I said, 32 plants. We did everything from switchgear to circuit breakers to light bulbs to appliances. We did everything when I was stationed in Budapest, and of course, GE Water, it was lots of different technologies and different channels to market. So you've already been experienced to seeing different business models and different ways of doing business, and you pull on those experiences.
Yeah, I want to get back. I'm going to come back to that before we wrap up, because to your point, it's one of those things where 20 years ago it's hard to imagine yourself in the seat that you are now. It's hard to predict the future, but all those things led up to where you are now.
Right.
And really, for me too. I mean, all those things that led up to this. I never could have imagined that I would be in the role, certainly in the role that I'm at. Tonya, one thing I want to get back to, you were talking about the backside and all that, and there's a ministry back there as well, the chaplaincy ministry. I'm not sure if I'm
That's right.
exactly what it's called.
Kentucky Racetrack Chaplaincy.
Could you talk? Yeah, could you talk about that, because we find that very interesting.
It is very interesting, and Kentucky Racetrack Chaplaincy, they're tremendous partners for us. And as I mentioned, we don't employ the community in the backside, but there are things we can do to make sure that, first of all, that their experience is great, and that as a migratory community, when the families are still left in Louisville, they have resources and they have a sense of community and support there. So the Racetrack Chaplaincy is one of the primary ways we do that. And of course, even if there is a language barrier, sometimes the communal language of faith, brings people together. And so that's really, really important to us. They do work at racetracks all across the state, but, they have a big footprint with a chapel on the backside. They have Sunday services.
So it's non-denominational chaplaincy?
Yeah, I mean it's Christian based. Not specific denomination, but and so and then beyond that, there is they do gift giving through the holidays. We do back to school supplies for the students, and it's just a recreational place for people to gather and spend time as well. And then in addition to the chaplaincy, there is the Backside Learning Center, and so that's more education focused and making sure that the families have the resources they need, and that's one of 3 nonprofits that are really based on our backside, that aren't, operated by us, but supported by us largely. And it's incredibly important that those thrive.
You think about all the different folks that are, involved in the business that you have, whether they're employees, not employees, volunteers, affiliated through some other way. I think of the jockeys as well. And back in the day when I was auditing, I did work on the Disabled Jockeys Fund. So I'm familiar with that particular fund. And one of the things that I realized through doing that and with talking with folks, and a lot of folks don't realize what amazing athletes the jockeys are.
Oh,
to be able to take a 2,000-pound, you guys see that all the time. I mean, the relationships that you have with the jockeys is probably
they're
really
incredibly strong, and it might be in a smaller package, but there's so much strength there and muscle density, and obviously very demanding. And so that's another community that we just want to make sure we're supporting through, nutritional support. They have the mental health support they need because of all of the demands that they're up against. They're really strong. They're an interesting bunch of athletes. Like any athlete, the demands are very large, but in particular, that's a tough one. But
there are a lot of great opportunities to support these organizations during Derby week. So you talked about the Racetrack Chaplaincy. They have an event Monday evening, I believe, of Derby week at the racetrack, and they always have an incredible keynote speaker, and you get an opportunity to bid on a lot of different auction items. And then I think there's Jock Tales on Wednesday night that is another fundraiser for the jockeys and a party. So
the jockeys actually bartend at that one, and then their tips go to PDJF, which is the Permanently Disabled Jockeys Fund. So that's a fun way to help support them.
Yeah.
But there's there are fundraising events. That's one of the great things about our platform, is that it gives opportunity for people to host major fundraisers for their nonprofits. And
the Derby Museum will have 700 or 800 people there on the Saturday before Derby. Is it Saturday before Derby?
It is. It's the Friday night before. It's the night before opening night. And so there's the money we donate, and then there's the indirect opportunity that our platform gives way for things like that, and your own fundraiser. Roses and Rose Egg.
Yeah, when you think about the use of property, we're always thinking about using the property and that we have, and finding ways for the highest and best use. I remember going there for the concerts that you had there for a while. And I'm sure that's hard to do. That had to be something that was kind of cool at the time, but hard to pull off, right?
Very difficult.
Yeah.
Well, we were the venue, I think, for the Police and the Rolling Stones. Yeah. So they gave us a fee, and that was great. But it's really hard to find, entertainers that are willing to play outside, and they can draw, 30 to 50,000 people crowd, especially now that you have the Yum Centers. This was pre-Yum Center, right, when those were here. It's a little bit more difficult now because they have a venue where they don't have to worry about what the weather's going to be.
Right.
Hullabaloo, 2010 or 11, 2010, I believe, 66 acts over 3 days. Absolutely artistic, incredible success. Financially, not so good.
Yeah.
We took the risk and did all the brokering, and we had some incredible acts, but probably not in our wheelhouse. Doesn't mean we won't do something like that again, but we took a swing at that, and it was the hottest 3 days in Louisville. That was so with horse racing going until July, and then starting back up in September, which means you have the horses there in August. You're kind of stuck with the hottest part of the year to be able to pull something like that off.
Yeah. I'm really excited this year as well because I've got a dear friend of mine that I worked with at Arthur Anderson that is part of a group that has a horse that's going to run the Derby this year.
How exciting!
Yeah, really excited for him. Yeah,
Oh,
whole group of folks too. And so we're just
In the actual Derby race?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Which
Wow.
horse? Dornick. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, he's going to running at the Bluegrass.
Yeah.
The
So
Keeneland next.
which is my daughter's getting married next Friday. They're coming in for that, and then he's going to go over to Keeneland.
He's a top 5
Yeah.
horse for me right now. I don't think anyone's shown to be, a flight line, which didn't run the Derby, but our American Pharaoh that comes in, you think this is going to be the guy that does it. So I think it's pretty wide open, which is going to make for a great race this year.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, he's a Louisville guy, doesn't live here right now, but it's just to see the excitement building up for this. Yeah.
I'm always interested to hear from people, even locally, who are super into the Derby, who don't understand or don't fully understand how horses qualify for the Derby and the road to the Kentucky Derby and that whole process. So that's a key part of the education of horse racing that people are really interested in because it doesn't naturally sort of fit into the context of how they celebrate the Derby. But that is really exciting. I'll have to keep an eye on that horse.
That's a dream.
It's a dream.
That is a dream.
I just want to wear that.
So hard. You get 20 horses and there's 25,000 foals a year. You have one opportunity to get there. And Tonya's point, you have to run in races and qualify and get points in order to get in. So.
I think he might be the first brother of last year's winner. I think Dornick may be.
Oh,
yeah.
I think you're right.
interesting.
I think the full brother.
Yeah,
full
brother,
brother
yeah,
of
full-
last year's
yeah.
winner. Of Mage's brother. Yeah. Mage's full brother.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see.
Interesting stuff.
We'll
That's
see.
exciting.
It's very exciting. So we were talking earlier, about your all's journey, and I'd like, just for our listeners, especially for our younger listeners that are out there that, want to start off in a great job, and it's not necessarily, about the money. It's about going to a place that you want to be at, but also just recognizing that over time, you're going to have different experiences, and those different experiences can lead to different things, kind of thing. You both have had that in your own careers, and now you're at the place that you're at, a very exciting place with Churchill Downs. I'd love for you to explain kind of your journey and the lessons and the learnings that you've had from that, and and from a leadership perspective too. What are those important aspects of your all's jobs right now from a leadership standpoint that you think is important? So I'll just open it up for conversation because I know I've had my own journey. Never would have believed that I'd be in the position that I'm in today.
Right. Well, I think
But everything
sometimes
kind of led up to that.
the detour is, the more interesting way to travel. And certainly my path to what I now consider my dream job, it was not a straight line. So I think, and I was actually speaking at a career panel the other day and to a group of college students, and I said, I see a lot now, people looking at job descriptions and maybe seeing one or two bullet points that they don't love, and they think, I'm not really interested in doing that. And I think what they're missing is, those experiences ultimately can lead you to your dream job. And I think it's important, just like with our bodies, to exercise different muscles in our brain. And when I look back at some of those jobs that certainly weren't my dream jobs and were a way of just getting a check at the end of the week, I still call upon so many of those experiences now, and they inform either the way I lead or the way I execute. And, it's in so many ways that I wouldn't have benefited from that knowledge if I'd just taken a more direct path to this role. So I would encourage people to, of course, keep your eye on the goal, but there's more than one way to get there, and so really keep an open mind to that. And this might not be very popular, but something I'm observing is I think the younger generation. I'm finally the age where I can say that now, but they boundaries are really important to them, which I admire. I think that what I'm observing is there is a fine line between, maintaining your own personal boundaries, but also then fulfilling your obligations. And so I come from a generation where you get there earlier, you stay later, you do more than is expected. And so, boundaries weren't really part of the conversation then. So it's a balance now in sort of respecting people's boundaries and how they can achieve balance in their life, but also proving yourself, working hard, and then getting someone's attention, and then getting an opportunity and walking through that door and making the best of it.
Imagine that. Showing up early, leaving later, working hard. The pandemic has just kind of messed us up. I don't know what it is. We come out of this pandemic and we're just...
we haven't reset fully. You're right. That's a really good point.
I couldn't agree with Tonya more on that point. I mean, my freshman year, my father passed away, so I joined the military to help pay for school. And of course, I love America and the United States and freedom that we have. And I took that as an opportunity. And I learned a lot of leadership skills there because I ended up going through ROTC and becoming an officer. And, you really learn how to lead by example, and you can learn all those skills, whether it be communication, verbal and written, a very clear way to think, a clear way to make sure people are understand what the goals are. You have ability to influence them and inspire them to go achieve those common goals. And I think at the end of the day, that's what leadership's about. But to your question about what advice would you give, I'd say first of all, stop worrying about what your title is or how many people you're leading. Worry about what skills you're gonna learn. There's gonna be a lot of laterals in your career. Laterals are okay because you need to have experiences that the people that you're leading, and you can relate to what they're going through. So you got to do a lot of, in order to be the leader of a business or a function or an organization, you have to have done some of the stuff that you're asking them to do so that you know what direction to give them. And you got to remember, you're not going to get that coming right out of school. You don't have any experience. You've been taught what's in school books. You haven't been. So do the work. Go and take risk. You got to take risk and do that big job. Don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
And just make sure you don't do the same thing twice. That's what I always tell my team.
Yeah. No, I think about that, with the experience that you had at GE, it's a perfect place for, taking really young people and giving them really difficult jobs. And, you're either going to thrive in that kind of environment or you're not going to thrive in it. One of the things that I've learned just in the last 2 years, and I'd love your thoughts on this, is, and maybe this was just because I was in public accounting, I was an auditor, lots of checklists and all that kind of stuff. I wasn't okay with ambiguity. I'm a lot better with ambiguity. And it's really about being kind of entrepreneurial, where you're not afraid to kind of move and do this and all that kind of stuff. But for me, I know that was always something very difficult in the past, was to recognize that anxiety or stress was being created because there was lots of vagueness and lots of ambiguity. You're not in control of everything. You can't control everything. You just got to let some stuff go and let it be okay and recognize that it's going to be okay on the other side. Because invariably, when you worry about something, you get to the other side of it, you say, what was I worrying about?
It's hard to loosen your grip. Oh, absolutely. It's so hard to loosen your grip sometimes. But I think that flexibility, adaptability, those are two really important words for me if I'm looking at a resume or I'm dealing, thinking about who to incorporate on a team. But that's about that sort of adaptability or that operating in the gray area when it's a little bit ambiguous.
Well, I'd be curious. I might be taking this a little bit of a different direction. I'd be interested as a business, how you guys managed through COVID. And now coming out of COVID, which I think a lot of what you're talking about there in terms of adaptability, and sometimes you just got to be together.
Yeah,
you got to be working.
Great question. I think first of all, when you think about our business, it was March 16th. I remember the day because that's my wife's birthday. The day everything had to be shut down, and we run a business where we have guests coming into our facilities. So we have a lot of frontline workers in casinos and in racetracks and food and beverage offerings across our facilities. And, for a period of time, we had to go. It was one of the toughest days of my career, right, is going and laying off all these people and taking down a bank revolver and making sure you stay, as a going concern, not knowing how long it was going to last. It's very, very touch and go for a long time. But when we came back and we opened our facilities and we had our front lines in the casinos, it's not like you could say, hey, work from home. We're going to open the casino and let people go in and take care of themselves. You can't do that in our environment. We basically told everybody else you got to come back to the office. Now there was a little bit of a phased approach. I actually, there's a few of us that never missed a day. We came into the office every single day. Luckily we were, plenty of space between us and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But, we got back and we said, okay, we're going to do 50%. So come in on even days or odd days, and had half back. We've been back in the office for several years now, 3 years now, 2-3 years.
That's great.
Yeah.
And so yeah, everybody's back in the office, but I think resilience and in terms of ambiguity, I think the point of that is communication. I think we have a very, very good job. We've got a great VP of communications here that helps make sure that there's not ambiguity. We know exactly what we're doing, why we're doing it, and that's how we manage through it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you all, it's amazing. Yeah. You think of all, I love Louisville. I love Kentucky. And, I'm not originally from here, but I've been here a long time. I've been here since the late 70s. And to think of all the wonderful organizations in this community, Churchill Downs being one of those, right at the top of the list, important to the community. And I think of all the different things that you're doing. Just think about just from an employment perspective, and from the economic development and the economic benefit that we get from Churchill Downs. It's an icon, and I do believe, especially with, and I say this to folks about St. Vincent de Paul, from a spiritual side of things. And we know that, with the ministry and the work that you're doing in the backside to help families and to help kids and the work that you do to help others and in the industry as well is a real blessing. Same thing with us. And I believe that Jesus is in all of that work, and he'll come back someday. And I know that there's some places that he's not going to go to. I know the places that he will. One would be our kitchen. He would sit down and have lunch with the folks that are eating there, come to the backside, be part of the ministry that you have there, right? And so that's a beautiful part of, and a very humble part of our organizations that I think is so important to everybody. And that's why, for us and our family, going back to Churchill Downs, and whether I'm in the turf club, which is great, or upstairs, I actually like just kind of sitting in the grandstand, having a beer and some nachos and just kind of hanging out, casual, and just being there just to kind of enjoy the day and bet a little bit, not a big better, but just to enjoy that time at Churchill Downs as opposed to some other tracks that I won't mention. But our preference is always to be at Churchill Downs at the track.
Well,
always.
Thank you for those points. I'm so grateful that you made them. And I think about the work that you do and how there's so much meaning in your work, and to bring it all full circle. If we're talking about advice we give, or what you look for when you're looking for your dream job, you have to make sure that your values align, right? And so sometimes when we think about the Derby, we think about the pageantry and the fashion, which I absolutely love and adore, and the horses. But I find so much meaning in my work. I think being a Kentuckian is central to my identity. And so this feels so important to the state for all the reasons that you said. And not only is it easy to find inspiration in this great institution as you have, but we have a responsibility to the state of Kentucky. And so, just like Bill said, when you hear the first strains of My Old Kentucky Home and you get a little choked up, it is really meaningful work that we do. And it's fun. Fun is another one of my values. So it's like, I gotta make sure I'm having fun, but it's really important to us to make sure that we're creating a sustainable ecosystem for the backside community, for other Kentuckians, for the horse racing industry. There's a lot of pride in that. We're very lucky. Yeah,
very fortunate, very fortunate. Any parting comments for our listeners as we wrap up?
Well, we're excited. We're 37 days out.
Yep.
And we hope to see everyone at the track, and then 31 days out. And it's going to be a spectacular year.
No doubt.
150 is going to be one to remember.
150 is going to be absolutely fantastic. Can't wait.
You've got to race to the altar before the race at Churchill Downs,
well,
right?
we do. You'll love this,
Yeah.
we do, and this is really cool. Maybe I shouldn't even say this because I'm not sure how we were able to accomplish it, but I was able to get for our out-of-town guests a Kentucky Fried Chicken bucket. You can't just get them, right? Because they have to watch the inventory. But somehow a friend of ours was able to get them. And so in it, we're going to have all kinds of Kentucky. We have a horseshoe. We have the 150th glass. Of course, there's some bourbon in there. And
You got to put the 150th bourbon with the roses on it.
And it's got also, the mint julep recipe and some simple syrup. And
Can
all
I
that
bring
kind
you a
of stuff.
magazine to throw in there? The
Yes,
Churchill Downs
please.
magazine? Just let me know how many you need.
15.
Okay. I'd love for your
Yeah,
guests to
that'd
have
be
that
great.
in their bucket.
Oh, that's awesome. But isn't that cool?
That's
Sitting there
very
for
cool.
Super cool.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool. But I mean, the Derby will be prominent in that. But I want to thank you all for being here, and just thank you for your leadership in an organization that's just so important to our community. It's important to us at St. Vincent de Paul. Thank you for supporting our Roses and Rosé event. It's going to be great. It's going to be some new fascinators. We have a individual that comes there that creates and donates some for the event that day.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah,
We've
it's
got
real
some
cool.
talented hat makers, milliners, and they get wilder every year.
No doubt.
Love it.
No doubt. Yeah. Well, every year, I don't even want to guess how many my wife has, but it's a lot.
You can't wear it twice. Come on.
Right.
Well, Dave, thank you
Thank
and
you.
St. Vincent de Paul for everything you do for the most needy in our society.
I appreciate it.
We appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all doing good work. Got to keep at it. Thank you all so
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks.